So this video is about the Solarian, and unlike my previous videos where I talk about power level between classes, I actually think this one is a little bit undertuned, which is different compared to like the rest of the book. Because for Soldier, I think it's pretty on the mark for its tuning. For most classes, I think they're a bit overtuned. This is the one that I think undershot the mark by a little bit. It's still really cool, and it just needs like another layer of polish, but I do have an issue with one of its main class features, and that one is, of course, its ability to launch projectiles from itself, and those projectiles have different properties based on your current alignment, and that is Solar Shot. So, before I get too far into this, I am going to, again, read that same paragraph from page 1 of the PDF. The Starfinder team's goal here is complete compatibility between systems. This means that we expect to see parties of adventurers where classic fighters and wizards play alongside soldiers and witch warpers. So, me comparing to Pathfinder 2e for class balance is completely acceptable, because they are expected to play together. Solarians are expected to play alongside barbarians, wizards are expected to play alongside witch warpers, etc., etc. I can compare things. Okay? So none of you can go into the comments and say, but it's a different game engine, they're balancing things differently. Not really. They said that they want the games to be cross-compatible completely. And I do know there will be some things around the edges and some expectations that blah 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 blah. I'll get into that. But my issue with Solar Shot is simply that it's kinda awkward in a lot of ways, and I think that if you want to use Solar Shots, it'll force a lot of these builds to be very samey. So let me state what I mean. So, Solarian's key ability score is Strength, and they get access to medium armor. That's perfectly reasonable, because this is the Strength character for the Starfinder 2e playtest. They had one class per key ability score. This is the Strength one, and is the one that's meant to be fighting in melee. And if you look at the martial melee weapons in the book, they all are a little bit undertuned compared to the Pathfinder 2e equivalents. I think that was intentional so that a pure Starfinder 2 game puts more emphasis on blasters and ranged weapons of all varieties. I'm completely fine with that. I think that we should have some more D12 options, but that's another story. The Solarian's main gimmicks are that it can generate a one-handed big weapon and this Solar Shot as like things all Solarians get. So my issue with this Solar Shot is it needs dexterity for accuracy. Yeah, you get down to your strength to damage, and that makes it a really powerful projectile attack. But you still need dex for accuracy, so that means that if you ever want to use this, you're gonna need to be strength and then dex is your next highest stat. And this is a thing that all of the ones that are in the subclass that has you use both alignments pretty much equally, the balanced Solarian is the one where you have Graviton Photon, and its Binaric Assault wants you to make a ranged strike with this ability. And I don't think that making everybody in that subclass go strength plus dex is gonna lead to a lot of different character concepts. Because, like, I kind of want to see a charisma-based Solarian. I want to see the intelligence-based Solarians. I want to see the wisdom Solarians that use battle medicine with an open hand plus their one-handed weapon that they reforge. And I want to see interesting stuff. I want to see build variety. And I think that locking this one in to require dex for accuracy makes the class weaker when it's already kind of in a spot where it's hard to justify over just a fighter if you're talking about melee proficiency. Because in a game where everybody wants to fire off a ranged attack, having Reactive Strike as an innate class feature is just so strong. Like, an Elven fighter with the 35 base move speed running at somebody is probably just going to be a more efficient melee character. And that's kind of sad. If they don't have this ranged blast or these other magical abilities, because like the fighter has sudden charge to gap close and do their strikes, the Solarian will not have much reason to play that over a fighter. And yes, they do have their special abilities, but realistically, for the balanced one, its special, like, class ability is Double Slice, but worse. Where the fighter's just going at it. So, what I want to see happen is, I want to see the Brutal trait finally become a player-facing option. I want to see their Solar Shot become Brutal, so that they can use Strength for accuracy with their ranged attack. And I don't think it's unheard of to use weird stats for ranged attacks, because, well, Kineticist is using their key ability score for their ranged attack, and Solar Shot reminds me a lot of the Elemental Blast, in terms of how it scales damage, in terms of how you're doing all of your stuff with it. So, I really do think that for that range blast, it keying off of Strength for accuracy and Strength for damage is not necessarily overkill, especially considering the potency of the strength weapons, or the weapons that exist for ranged combat in this game. Because there are some really, really powerful ranged weapons. Far more powerful than we had in Pathfinder 2. So, that is not exactly an overbearing thing. And then you also have the issue of, if you're in the Graviton mode, you're only launching out these 15-foot maximum range attacks. That is only 5 feet more than having a reach weapon, which any Solarian can have as a one-handed D8 reach. So, I'm not really a fan of the Solar Shot, and I think that Solar Shot is really cool, and it should be a good range option for all of them. So I really hope that that max range gets turned into a range increment, so that if somebody is 40 feet up with fly speed, you can still play the game. Because I think that I want to have it so that every class has the ability to play the game. And this one runs into the same issue as a lot of melee characters, where if a flying enemy just goes outside of your melee reach, you really don't have many options. And like, comparing it to that Elven Fighter I mentioned earlier, if they just spend a level 2 class feat taking a caster archetype, they can get Frostbite, which is a 60-foot range cantrip. And before somebody says, hey, you're using a Pathfinder 2 spell, they literally say in the spells section you are meant to use stuff from Player Core to complement the Starfinder spells. So, this is an acceptable character for Starfinder 2, to have a fighter running in with Frostbite. And that kind of does Solarian's job, but better? Unless you consider Solarian's feats to be that much stronger than fighter feats, which I don't necessarily feel is true. I just think that Fighter's class chassis is so much stronger that Solarian might get pushed out of the meta entirely before it even gets a chance to try and make an impact. And I think that Solarian being a melee martial with a powerful ranged option innately built in would give it a very unique niche, and thus give it the reason to put on any comp and make it more useful in Starfinder than Pathfinder, but it having a lot more forced movement options and a lot more ways to gap close with different feats and all kinds of other stuff would still make it very puttable on team comps. I just kind of want to see its unique ranged blast as a martial be a bit more powerful. And that's really the only change I think it needs to be a great addition to the game. But hey, people can let me know their thoughts in the comments down below. I still haven't gotten a chance to playtest the classes yet, but yeah, let me know what you think. Comment down below.